Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call a meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this morning. Introducing the panel members is Mr. Brent McIntyre to my left, and to his left is Richard McBride. And representing the City of Winnipeg from the Assessment Department is Merrick Frolick, and our recording secretary is Michelle Neepen. We'll be hearing an application for revision of the assessment roll according to the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested is described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant or the assessor make at the hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the City Administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at this hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please be advised, or please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application for exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, the information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this morning, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant. Following the swearing in, we'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the other applicants may have, and it'll be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this morning. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. I'll ask our secretary to swear in Mr. Frolick and to swear. Either affirm him or to swear in Mr. Sitkowski. Or affirm.
Can you state your full name, please?
You're a caller.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your full name, please?
Sitkowski.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
Well, good morning to all. So we'll deal with 1249 Clarence Avenue, and just to make a little statement, I guess Mr. Frolick, this is not really your workup. I understand that somebody had to do some other things prior, so will not be attending. So these are not your workups, but you are presenting.
That is correct, and thank you for stating that right now, because it saved me that, having to do so. Okay. Good morning, everyone. First property you have is file number 194191. Roll number is 030703500500. Address is 1249 Clarence Avenue, and the assessed value that we have for 2020 is $6,105,005. One-story building, which is a warehouse in the southwest quadrant of the City of Winnipeg on Clarence Avenue. We have an effective year built in 1978. Zoning is M2 Manufacturing General. The land area is 225,000 square feet approximately. Plan area is 73,580. Land to building ratio is 3.06. Property owner has been compliant with regards to filling out income and expense mailers that we will see later on. We're looking at the property. We're looking at the range of leases that exist here. The range that we have for the subject property leases is ranging from $5.75, which was signed in May 1st, 2013, to more recent leases up to as high as $9.35. Our overall average is $6.43 for the rents in this property.
Sorry, 643?
$6.43, I think. That's
687, I think.
okay, but out of this one here, not the model.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Apologies.
This is the subject property leases here. I do believe the model is 687. Yeah, that's the model that we
So the
have.
average is 640.
That's what my colleague wrote here. So these are the leases that we have in place. Page 3 shows the 2 buildings that we have in question. Page 4 shows an overhead view of it and some additional pictures. And page 5 just shows a general overview of the subject property. Capitalization rates. So we're all familiar with the work that we do with regards to capitalization rates. For the 2020 assessment, capitalization rates were derived from a model-generated estimates of net operating income and sales prices that were time adjusted between April 1st to April 1st, 2018. Racial statistics from the Assessment and Taxation Department, income-producing properties satisfy the standards specified and set forth by the Standard on Racial Studies, which is published by the International Association of Assessing Officers. City of Winnipeg in taxation does have a wide range of capitalization rates, as all parcels in the city have been accounted for. Variables such as size, age, and location influence the capitalization rates. So we're in the southwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg for industrial properties, probably the area to be for industrial properties within the city of Winnipeg. What we have for our model generated rates are between the city of Winnipeg rates are between 5.5 and 9.8%, and 60% of our cap rates are between 6.34 and 7.8%. So for the flex market, what we have here is we have a leasable area of 70,724 square feet, with the rent being $6.87 a square foot, the average. Potential rent is $486,138, vacancy of 2.5%, expenses at 2%, and shortfall at $3.75. Coming up with a net operating income of $457,875. Our cap rate that we have for this property is 7.5%, so it's definitely at the higher range of cap rates within the city of Winnipeg. But it's a combination of being a bit older building, but it's also, which is probably what's driving the cap rate to be a bit higher. We have a cap rate of $6,105,000, total value of $6,105,000. And what we have here is that the estimated potential rent is net of all expenses to the owner, including the cost of management. You're going to see in my brief here that management is fully recovered, as with most artist REIT properties. What we have for rent comparables for the Flex Warehouse. So what we've done here is, once again, we have a range of rents. All of them are all in the southwest quadrant. Clarence Avenue, Waverly, Troche Bay, Otter, Waverly. If you're looking at this, one of our lowest leases that we have from comparable, which was signed in April 4th, 2013, which is the 19 Otter. That lease is signed in 2013, but it's a 1972 building, so it is a bit older than the subject property. And this lease is $6.90. It's 10,310 square feet, so in terms of sizes, it's actually a bit larger than a lot of the leasable spaces that we have shown on page 7, because the majority of the spaces that we have in the Flex Warehouse are around the $5,000 range, between $3,300 to $6,500, with one outlier being the $31,685. Other leases that we have in the area are like on Waverly, Troche, and you can see the range there from $6.90 to $9.25. I don't know the details of the subject properties of the actual leases that were used by my colleagues. They're all in the neighborhood. There's similar ceiling heights, which is important. So we've got ceiling heights between 12 and 22 square feet, 12 and 22 feet. And you see the range here, some of them are 12, some of them are up to high 22. And once again, Fort Garry Industrial Park continues to experience high demand and therefore high rents. Municipal Assessment Act. On page 9. Page 10 shows where the property is located at, in the southwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg, between Waverly and Pembina Highway. Property owner has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers. And what we have here is, as we're looking at page 12 right now, Artis completes this out, so they have rental income, and they show recovery income. So clearly stated here, the recovery income, if you look at the third line down, it says recovery management fees of $34,970. So that's a pretty significant amount of money. And just by looking at the property for the first time, yeah, so what we have for recovery of management fees here, just on this one line item, based on our potential rent, is almost 7%, 6.9% that we're actually recovering. Rest of the items here are pretty standard from an income and expense bill perspective. My colleague wrote down here that the allowable expense revenue that she has listed here is $748,370. Another thing that she had mentioned here is the actual net income that they presented here, not including expenses, and she's done a workup where she's taken out important items such as the expenses with regards to deferred recoverable interest, deferred recoverable contracts, and other items. So the actual net income that she has reported here is $528,264, which is significantly higher than what we have here at $457,875. And we're dealing with Artis Rate, which is a well-known company. They know what they're doing. They have good management. They have a good formula for successful business practices. On page 13 right now, I'm showing the leases on the rent roll here. So if we're looking at Source Nautical, first lease that we have listed here is $9.35. Then we also show operating expenses at $229 and taxes at $159. Next rent that we have here is at $575, which is the net. And the other ones that we have listed here is at $650 and $675. So when we're looking at all these rents here, you know, the $687 that we're presenting today seems to be quite fair and reasonable. Cool. I got some more on page 15. $650, $650, $675. Once again, and now I'm looking at page 16. So if we're looking at the subject property here right now, it's 100% occupied. So the model generator that we use, which I failed to mention beforehand, for the southwest quadrant's 2.5%. So the subject, and we're always going to be expecting vacancies, but there is high demand. All the reports saying that we have within the city of Winnipeg by the major real estate players say that the southwest quadrant is a high demand area with low vacancies. So in this situation here, for this property, we have 2.5% as a vacancy. The subject property has 0%, so I think we're being reasonable here. On page 17, we have the addenda with regards to the fresh look of assessments within the city of Winnipeg. Each cycle looks at new data and adjusts our model accordingly to adhering to standards from the IAAO. These are bona fide arm's length sales using 3-year stabilized net operating incomes to derive cap rates that illustrate the accuracy according to the model. We have on page 18, the bottom of page 18, we have the cap rates that we should use, just to show a sample of some of the cap rates. And the cap rates that we're using is very consistent with the cap rates that are published by Colliers, by C.B. Richard Ellis, and other groups. Non-recoverable on page 19. Evidence on the table 9 shows approximately 9 properties where the non-recoverable expenses is approximately 2% in most cases, which is why we've given an extra 2% for other expenses. Page 19 shows the range. And my colleague here on page 20 and 22 shows some recent board decisions that have taken place that where the hearings at these boards have recognized their 2% ratio. We also realize that there are many hearings where where the 5% was added on to the net operating income for the applicant as well. That concludes my presentation, and which is why I feel comfortable that the value should be $6,105,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frolick. Mr. Sitkowski, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I just wanted to confirm that regarding that 5% non-recoverable expense, I mean, are we gonna be arguing that, should I be presenting evidence? I know.
I think we've heard.
We've heard it, so-
Yeah, I just did an
Yeah.
overview of the actual
Okay.
presentation here,
Yeah.
just to show that it's there. I'm not gonna go through it every time, Les.
Okay.
But it's just,
Yeah.
I've been told
Yep.
that we go through it once more thoroughly, and a lot of the questions
Right.
will not have to succeed from that.
Okay, so because I noticed that you did, Tricia did present
Yeah,
some evidence regarding.
we've been asked to do that,
Okay,
that's
okay,
what
so I'm not gonna, because I have copies of, you know,
No,
some
that's
decisions, so
fine.
I'm
I
not
think
gonna
the
be
panel
using-
members have heard it, and
Yes,
it is fine.
okay. So just to confirm, so I understand, Mr. Foley, that obviously you haven't prepared this, as you have mentioned, and this was sort of a last minute thing about you coming here to.
8:15 this morning.
Not much
So,
time.
we'll try to.
Thank you, I appreciate your generosity.
Thank you. So I just, I guess, first of all, just like to confirm that department uses models to arrive at values.
Based on the income and expense values from the
Okay,
2017.
so use model. So, question then is, what is the relevance then of presenting income statement?
Well, we base all models that we do on the income and
But
expense
on this,
values.
but on this, well, I mean, you arrive at these models based on all the information that you receive.
Yeah, so,
So, but a single, so as I said, what is the relevance of including income statement from this particular single property?
well,
And how much weight would the department put on that?
well, it's a combination of things because there are over 240,000 parcels within the city of Winnipeg in total. And from a commercial perspective, you know, I think we have about maybe 25,000 or so commercial properties. So you can't do site-specific valuations on each individual property. So there's two reasons why we provide income and expense values. First and foremost, with regards to penalty and the non-compliance issues. So we want to do show that the property owner has been compliant with regards to what's in legislation. So, and why it's so important is that if no one sent us the 2017 income and expense mailers, the quality of our data would suffer, and the quality of our models would suffer, and we wouldn't be able to produce an assessment roll.
But as I understand it, the department puts a little weight on the income statement when it arrives at a value.
We're within a range, so
When you use your models, I mean, obviously, if you relied on this income statement, as you had mentioned, the income would be much higher. I think.
that's what they reported, so that just shows that we're actually being
But-
generous.
Well, generous or you're putting a little weight on that.
Well,
Because you're using, I guess, en masse, what was I gonna say? In terms of arriving at a value, use en masse statistics, mass.
That is correct, yeah,
information.
based on all the income and expense mailers in the southwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg, because that's how we segment them.
And, Mr. Foley, obviously, you haven't had an opportunity to inspect the property, or
Yep.
do you know anything about this property?
I've driven down Clarence, I had an inspection on MCI last month. So, and I am familiar, I know Winnipeg Transit runs a special industrial park service down Clarence Avenue. I know it's a major thoroughfare, and there's tons of businesses that operate in the southwest
But-
quadrant on Clarence.
But this particular property
I
is
know.
not actually located on Clarence, is that correct?
Well,
If you take a look at page 5, this is one of your pictures.
Yeah, I do see that, Les, yeah. So what happens, they have a small,
A lane.
they have a small lane to get into that, yeah, I see that
Yes.
completely, yeah.
So I guess it would be a misnomer to categorize this particular property
Yeah.
as being actually on Clarence Avenue, right?
Yeah, this property is definitely not the normal property that would be with high frontage on Clarence Avenue. I can see that.
Yeah, and as you can see that that lane is it's a pretty narrow lane that provides access to this property, which is, and I should point out that it's located 375 feet from the road.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that, Les, is that the rents, despite the odd location of it, so in general, there's limited access, which would be or frontage, but the rents aren't showing that on the income and expense mailer for what they're achieving.
But when you
Gentlemen, I prefer not the dialogue going on here,
Oh,
okay?
I thought I was answering your question.
No, but be questions and answers, okay?
Okay, I'll make it shorter.
Okay.
so that would be, the fact that its location is where it is, I mean, that would be probably reflected in cap rate possibly, would you agree? So if they look, there are several, would you agree that there are several items that go into determining what cap rate should be used? Age of building, location, state of the building. And in this particular instance, did you when arriving at the value, did you consider the location of the building?
Like you stated, location is one aspect of the overall valuation of the property.
This building is over 40 years old. Did you consider the age of the building when arriving at the?
Yeah, which is reflective of the higher cap rate that we've used.
On page 6, where you show your cap rate study, you're saying that about 80% of the properties are within the 6.34 and 7.8 range.
Yeah.
Would you consider this property to be an outlier?
No.
Because of its location?
No, well, in a macro perspective, the southwest quadrant's the most desirable area. So we're not looking at, so those higher cap rates would be used for industrial properties that are more inner city located at, or maybe in very old St. Boniface Industrial Park.
But because it's backing onto, or in the back of another property that actually fronts Clarence,
Yeah.
you wouldn't consider that this particular property as being kind of odd,
We-
and therefore possibly, being an outlier and then possibly necessitating possibly a higher cap rate?
Well, I believe our cap rate's high enough for the area. If it's newer buildings in the southwest quadrant, the cap rate would probably be at around 6.5% for this size of property. And so I think our cap rate's fair.
When you take a look at the income statement, page 12, and then some of the page 12 to 16, this particular income statement covers the period of January to December of 2017. Are you aware that have been any changes to this building in terms of occupancy?
I don't know what has happened after I came into this new stuff, so I don't know anything that's gone beyond.
Okay, if there was information for 2018 would the department, or should the department have used the 2018
Well,
information?
when we do our analysis, we look at a lot of factors, and the point is, if there are situations where there's super high vacancy for the building, I'm not aware of the vacancy history in 2016, 15, 14, and 13, but overall, I believe and currently how it's currently performing, it's at 0%. So looking at the leases here, like I can't comment on something that I don't know, so let's.
Well, in general, maybe I should try to keep this more generalized. So if for example, 2018 income statement and
Mr.
red column.
Sitkowski, I'm gonna interrupt because basically you can question what you have in front of you, okay?
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to start delivering your evidence. So, you know, you can question the assessor in regards to the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So, on page 16, the red pole showed that there's no vacant area.
That is correct.
Okay, those are my questions with respect to the.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
Presentation.
I just have two. Page one of your brief shows 4 buildings,
Yeah.
and the pictures show 2.
So what I'm guessing, without having access to the field forms here, is when we look at the years built, we have a 1976 year built and a 2000 year built. So my guess is maybe extensions have taken place. And actually, if you look at the roof lines on page 5, the roof lines show that there's actually, so, and what we do for our model is that if you look at the one that's furthest to the south, there's one roof line on the building to the south. And if you look at the building to the north of it, there's another roof line. So what I'm anticipating, without doing an inspection, without knowing the history, is that there were add-ons to the property.
In each category.
In each category, yeah, and each one would have a separate building code for when it was built.
Okay. The other question was, you mentioned the actual NOI. I didn't get a chance to write it down.
Okay, well, what my colleague reported, and this is in her calculations where she's highlighted the expenses that we wouldn't consider for valuation. She wrote down 528,264.
Okay, that's all my questions.
I thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Question was answered.
Okay. I don't think I have any either. So, Mr. Sitkowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted first to confirm that you have received the documents with respect to rent comps for flex warehouses. And
It was not in the brief, or is it?
I was advised that it was presented there. They were not in each individual brief, but
Oh, yeah, actually, just give me a sec here. Yeah, she did, sorry. Where did she has it somewhere. Where did she? Yeah, I did receive it.
okay, I'm sure the board has received
Yeah,
these
okay.
pages.
Okay. Sorry.
They look different.
And,
Pages he
and,
has. Oh, you've got, oh.
yeah.
Okay. Your presentation?
So, with respect to the location of this particular building, what I'd like to do is I'd like to provide you with some additional pictures that provide a little bit more clarity.
That's
This
new
is-
information.
this is-
You know, so
Well, this is rebuttal because we're.
what are you rebutting?
So.
So, Mr. Sitkowski, I'd like to, you could make your presentation if you don't mind.
Okay, so you,
Well, I don't know what you have there, okay? So, to
Okay.
me, that's new evidence, okay? Which is not in the brief, so it's gonna be probably denied unless the assessor wants to look at it and comment whether it's gonna be acceptable.
well, it just confirms the location and the fact that that access is down the lane.
Okay, I think you've made your point, so you can do it in your summary in regards to, you know, your final word, okay? So take us through your presentation, sir.
So again, I just wanted to emphasize the point that this particular property is located not on Clarence Avenue, but behind the buildings that are located in Clarence, and it's measured at, it's roughly 375 feet from the street. And I'd like to turn to page 3 of the presentation. And this is a flex warehouse. And based on our the rent studies for flex warehouse, we wanted to change the lease rate from $5.15 that's shown there to $7.50 per square foot. Sorry, I apologize. We're going to be going with the $687 per square foot as the department has. So we're going to be, like I said, we're not arguing the $6.87 a square foot. The $5.15 that's shown on our brief is incorrect.
Okay.
If you
So
like,
would you
I have a new workup.
Okay, okay, that's fine. You may present that.
Okay.
So in essence, Mr. Sikowski, you're going with the same rents as
The same rents, yes,
as the city?
yes.
Okay.
However, we have an issue with the vacancy. The department uses a 2.5
Yeah,
vacancy allowance.
just take us through your
And,
presentation. I
And if
mean,
you
know,
go
we
to
can
page
read.
18 of our presentation, this is a rent roll from 2018 as of the reference year, April 1. And you'll see a vacant area of 31,685 square feet, which is approximately 45%. And this area was released as of June 2019, so after the reference year. Sorry, 2018. So as a result of this vacancy that's in this particular building at that time, during the reference year, we feel that a 7% vacancy allowance would be most appropriate. We also have reinstituted the 5% non-recoverable expenses, and we're using a cap rate of 8% based on our cap rate studies. And if you take a look at our cap rate studies, the average is 8.29%.
What page is that on?
That's in this additional presentation.
I'm trying to find it here, so, okay.
And so we feel that 8% cap rate for this property is more appropriate, mainly because of its location, its age. It has an effective age of 1978, which is over 40 years old. And also the fact that it has ceiling heights of anywhere from 12 to 22 feet. So they're not the normal ceiling height for a new property built in the 2000s is around 26 feet, 25 to 26 feet. So we feel that 8% would be a lot more appropriate. And based on these parameters, we arrive at a value of $5,424,000. So we're asking the board to reduce the assessment to $5,424,000.
Just say that number again, please.
$524,000.
I think you're gonna change that figure, so it should be $5,021,000 less.
That's what it says on your brief.
Sorry, 5 million, yeah, I apologize, I was looking at the wrong one.
Okay.
Yeah, 5,020,000, actually 5,021,000, yes.
Okay.
And that's it for your presentation, sir? Open for questions?
Yes,
Mr. Frolick?
Yeah, for sure. Just, so who vacated the properties, Sid, to cause this high vacancy rate?
it was, the occupant occupied at 31,000 square feet. Pollard Banknote Limited signed the lease in June of 18.
Wouldn't that be post-reference?
That's right, I'm just mentioning that, yes, it is post-reference, but the occupancy, the vacancy existed during the reference.
The reason why I'm asking this is because I just want to compare the 2017 mailer to the 2018 mailer that you provided, so I just want to get a better understanding of this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so page 18, it does, as I said, it does note that the vacant area was just shy of 32,000.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
when did that, where is it on that 2017 mailer? And what was the was it just the one tenant, or was it?
It was
the
one,
three?
it was one tenant,
Okay.
yes.
Do you know what the vacancy history was in 2016 and 2015?
Well, the history, it wasn't vacant in those years.
Okay.
It became vacant in 18.
Okay. And do you have any advertisements with regards to how they're trying to advertise this space, or is this space occupied right now?
It's occupied right now.
Okay.
As I said, it became occupied in June of 18.
Okay, so the vacancy was actually very short term.
It was, well, from the, about 8 months, I believe.
8 months. So wouldn't the vacancy, and right now it's 100% occupied?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so to go for 8
But
months
we're-
on a longer horizon, I think the vacancy's a non-issue here, because we give vacancies, so even when there are situations whereby, I'm sorry, I got a question. The model generates, would you agree with me that that all of our properties that we present here as a department have some level of vacancy?
The models, yes, the models
Okay.
indicate
And
that.
so for 8 months out of 12 years where it was
So-
higher vacancy, is that really being fair to the process?
So-
By being so isolated and so segmented in your view, where you're looking at a very short period of time as opposed to a longer time horizon?
Well, on April 1 of 2018,
Okay, but that would be post-reference too though, right? Oh, wait, that's, pardon me, I said June, I apologize.
no, April 1, 2018, we had no idea that this space would become tenanted again. It was vacant at that particular time. There's 46% of the space was vacant at that particular time.
Okay. Fair enough, let me just look at your cap rate study. Where is Winfield? The property at 15 Winfield. I'm not familiar with that location.
Can you look it up for you?
You guys know? Or where's?
Don't know.
Okay.
Les, you can't use your phone right here.
I'm not, oh, okay, sorry, I was just looking at, okay.
Okay, I'm just,
Okay.
sorry, because I was curious, because I don't know where, like, okay.
It's in the northwest quadrant of the
Okay, so none of your cap rate studies are from the southwest? You have one on Seal, which is even older than the subject property. Is that correct? Do you have anything, any other cap rates that were in the southwest quadrant?
I believe Cameo is in Southwest.
No, that's in St. Boniface.
Is that the same honest? Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay. Were you aware that there was an appraisal report done on that property?
I'm sorry?
Were you aware that there was an appraisal report done on 555 Camille?
No.
So, on page 3 of this brief here, you have Cushman Wakefield, so showing a range of cap rates between 6.5 and 7.75. If this property was located in an older part of Winnipeg, what sort of cap rate would you use?
Well, I mean, we'd have to take a look at, more than just that factor. We'd have to take a look at the age of the building, the land to building ratio, height, ceiling heights, all different factors that would have to be looked at.
Do you know what the ceiling heights are for your cap rate study? Like, because I'm sure some of these older buildings have a similar wall height to the subject property.
This document doesn't state what the ceiling heights are.
No other questions?
I thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
Did you prepare this report?
I prepared part of it.
So as of December 31st, this major tenant of 2017 was still in the building, according to the,
That's right.
so then it was fully occupied June 1st of 2018.
No, it was vacant already at that time. The page 18 of the report, the date is April 1, 2018. It shows a vacancy of 31,685.
But I thought you said it was occupied June 1st.
It became occupied later on, after the reference period.
Right. But you had said it was 8 months and it's really only 6 months. Right, December.
No, this was, I'm trying to think how long it was occupied. I have a note here. I know it was occupied June the 18th of post reference.
So the previous tenant left December 31st.
You know what, I don't have that information, but as I understood, speaking with the people in Mr. Story's office, it was vacant for approximately up to 8 months, as I understand it. It could be 6 to 8 months, anywhere from 6 to 8 months.
Okay, that's all my questions.
I thank you. Mr. Whitred?
Just wanted to clarify something the assessor said. The property was vacant 8 months out of the past 12 years. Is that correct?
It was vacant for a short period of time.
Approximately 8 months?
Yes.
But over 12 years?
Well, there was no vacancy prior to that.
Right, okay. Thank you for confirming that. No further questions.
I thank you. Summation, either party?
I think we're good here.
Okay. Let's go further down the street to 1420 Clarence. Mr. Frolick, your presentation.
File number is 94065. Roll number is 03070487500. Address is 1420 Clarence, which is almost, I'm guessing, right beside the subject, our previous property. Roll year for 2020 is $2,111,000. This is also a flex warehouse, one building. The property was built in 1987. Zoning M2 manufacturing general. We have a land area of 49,731 and we have a leasable area of 16,725. Artist REIT has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers. Subject property leases that we have here range from from a low of $8 that was signed in 2012, which is important because as we get closer to the reference year, the rents tend to be a bit higher. And then we're also looking at other rents that are, $8.50, $9.25, $10.50, and $11. We got, we even actually have one there that was signed in 2006 for $9.50. Here's a view of this subject property on page 3. We have some pictures on file with regards to, I don't know what building that is, some sort of magazines of some sort. There's the warehouse component of it. And here's the overview shots that we have on page 5. I am guessing that this has a good issue with regards to access and visibility. Cap rate information is the same as I stated before. Effective year is 1987. The lease ranges are from $14.25 to $23.25. We're using a rent of $9.35 as average. And our gross potential rent is $156,303. We have a vacancy at 2.5%, with an effective gross income of $152,395. 2% for expenses, $375 for shortfall. We have a net reported income of $147,779. And according to my colleague, she wrote down an actual net operating income of $176,532 on her brief, using a 7% cap rate. So you can see the difference between the cap rate that was in the 1970s as opposed to the cap rate in 1987. So we got a 7% cap rate here, using $2,111,000. Our rent comparables that we have here are all with close to the subject property. They're on Waverfield, Waverly, Skirfield, Troche. She also included Murray Park, but I guess she had done that because of the fact that it was built in 1988, and it has the same ceiling height as the subject property. So the subject property has a ceiling height of 17 feet, and I think maybe that's why she put the property here for Murray Park Road, which is in St. Boniface Industrial Park. All our warehouse rents are in the market regions, similar wall heights, and she shows a range from $675 to $1333. What we have here is on page 10, we're showing where the property is. And the bottom of page 10 shows that it's actually on the high visibility, high profile corner. Also shows we have all the information here with regards to the rent roll, which is consistent with what we've provided here. And I'm just going through it myself, gentlemen, so please bear with me. And similar to the other presentations at the bottom of it. So based on the information presented right now, I am comfortable with presenting a value of $2,111,000. Thank you.
I thank you. Mrs. Slitkowski, questions of the assessor?
So this particular building is just slightly over 30 years old, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so it's for this type of, this is a flex warehouse as well, as I understand it, is that
Yep.
correct? So is this on the older side of this type of building?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of flex warehouses that were built in the 1960s. So, and I know there are newer ones that were built in the 70s and 80s, so it could be on a bit older for standard flex warehouses.
And the wall height, 17 feet, is for this type of building, is that on the lower?
Not
side?
really, because with flex warehouses, a lot of aspects of the flex warehouses, because there are flex warehouses that are different, right? And so we're not in a situation with this type of property where you need a 30-foot ceiling height. There's a combination of office space and warehouse space that exist. So the 17 feet wall height meets the needs of this type of property. So for flex warehouses, I don't see any flex warehouses, or very few of them, that have 30 feet wall heights.
Are you talking about buildings this age, or are you talking about in general, including new buildings?
Well, like, my exposure to flex warehouses are limited because recently switched over. But to me, this is almost like a strip mall per se. And so you're not storing, you don't have the same sort of storage capacities, issues that you would have with a 30-foot warehouse or with other types of industrial properties that we use. So I think it's standard for that year, for this property class. Because you gotta look at this property class. It's not like an inventory for manufacturing. It's not a distribution warehouse. This is a flex warehouse, and based on my experience, the ceiling heights aren't as high.
So you mentioned that this resembles a strip mall meaning retail strip mall, is that?
Well,
what you
usually, yeah, well,
suggesting?
the point is, there are properties here that are similar to the subject property that have retail functions. Like, and even if we look at my subject property picture, I'm not too sure what they're selling here, but there's some sort of books here, like, and I haven't been there.
But if you look at page 3, you look at
Mr.
the.
Stokowski, I don't think, I think you're doing your presentation, are you not? Or is there questions?
Oh.
I'm getting
Oh,
confused here.
okay, I was actually
Okay.
getting confused here as well, because
Yeah.
he was asking me questions, and so,
Okay, so continue asking questions, but I'd like to
Okay,
have,
I think I lost focus there
have
too.
questions and answers, okay? Not general discussion,
okay.
okay? Mr. Stokowski, questions of the assessor?
So again, just further to your comment about this being similar to a strip mall. So Mr. Follett, if you take a look at page 3 and page 4, on page 3 you notice that you'll see in the lower picture overhead doors, quite high overhead doors, and on page 4 you see warehouse type of storage. So would that be a fair comment if you take a look at these two pages?
Well, it's obvious to me that when you're looking at page 4, that the ceiling height for the office portion of it, where, I don't know if these are selling books or what these are, but that ceiling height is not 17 feet. And the ceiling height for the bottom of page 4 is 17 feet. So to me, this is a mixed-use facility, which is why it's called a flex warehouse, not a distribution warehouse.
And on page 6, with respect to the capitalization rate study, again, for industrial properties, the range is from 5.5 to 9.8, is that correct?
Yep.
And so this particular property would, in your opinion, it would fall closer to the higher range, is that correct?
Well, when we look at the 60% of our cap rates that we use, it is in the southwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg, which is the premium industrial location within the city of Winnipeg. So I believe a 7% cap rate seems fair.
So it's, in your opinion, it's not an outlier then, it's...
Definitely not.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
No question.
Mr. Stokowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm gonna turn to page 3 of the presentation, and based on, but before I do that, I just wanted to again refer everybody to our rent study for flex warehouses and cap studies as well. It would be the same information from the previous property.
Okay, that's fine.
So, our rent, the medium rent for this type of home, this type of property is $7.50 a square foot. And we'd like to amend that lease rate from $5.50 to $7.50 per square foot.
Do you have a handout then?
Yes, if you like, I have
Okay.
it.
Joe.
You're welcome.
And again, based on the age of the particular building, which is over 30 years old, we're believe that a cap rate of 7.5% should be more appropriate, and that is actually in line with the cap rate study that's presented by the city, and in line with our cap rate study for this type of property. So based on the workup, we're asking for the assessment to be reduced to $1,020,000.
I'm sorry?
$1,020,000.
It's different on, you should.
Sorry.
Okay.
What am I, again, I apologize. It's $1,496,000.
All right. And that's your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Frolick, questions?
Yes, can you explain to me, so I'm gonna ask you with regard to the new workup. So you presented a net operating income of $112,172 on your brief here, on your new recommendation.
Okay.
On page 13 of my brief, they've reported a net income of $196,603. And our actual net income that my colleague created was $176,532. So can you explain to me the $50,000 difference in net operating incomes?
Well, first of all, I thought as you mentioned before, we're using models to arrive at values. So when you look at a specific building, that could have information that is outside of your models. Are you saying that we should be using that information?
No, just answer the question, please.
Well, sorry, what was the question
The
again?
question is you're reporting a net operating income of $112,172, and am I here doing the math here from Artis Re?
That's close enough.
Okay,
What you
that's-
had
okay.
mentioned.
So, to me, that's a significant difference of $50,000. So, in your calculations here, you know, where we've talked about they receiving management on it. So, part of their net operating income includes management recoveries. So, I'm just trying to figure out how the calculations exist, where there's like a $50,000 difference in net operating
Well,
income.
we're using modeled information, just like the department is using models.
And so, but in your model here, or when you're writing comparables that you've shown here, you know, even though, and let me double check on this gentleman, because I apologize. You're, just to confirm, Les, you're using our rents? No, you're not, you're using, so none of your rents here show any southwest quadrant rents. They're all in different parts of the city of Winnipeg. So, I'm just trying to figure out where you came up with the new 750 when your model and all your rents that you have here, none of them are in the southwest quadrant.
Well, as I mentioned, I believe earlier, that these models are based on citywide information.
Okay. Do you know what the assessment was in 2018?
No, I don't.
Okay. I see. It was, just for the record, it's $1,837,000. And do you have any macro information or any insight showing that the industrial marketplace within the city of Winnipeg has taken there's been a huge reduction, like at least a 25% reduction in real estate values?
Well, you know, you're talking about assessments, and we all know that you can't rely upon assessments.
Well, no, but what I'm saying, in real estate values, you're proposing.
Well, but
that-
you're sorry, the question is, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead, ask that
Questions
question
and
again.
answers, please.
Okay, so the question was, you're presenting here a value where there's been a 25% reduction in property values in the southwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg. Do you have any market data or any information to provide us by leading financial institutions that show that there's a reduction of 25% in market values for industrial properties?
I'm presenting evidence here based on models to suggest what the current value of this property should be.
Okay, no other questions?
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre,
I have no questions.
Mr. Whitbread,
I have no questions.
summary in either party?
Nope.
Okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute break?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds reasonable to me.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the hearing back to order, and we'll go to 1239 Monahan, whenever you're ready.
File number is 19-4036. Roll number is 030659-85200. 1239 Manhattan, which is all Chevrier. For 2020, we have assessed value of $766,000. Property was built in 1998. Wall height is 12 feet high. Zoning is M2. We have a leasable area of 7,662 and a land to building ratio of 1.78. There is this, property owner has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers. There is a sales history of this property. It most recently sold on July 9th, 2013 at $650,000. And you can see the trend in market valuation, how it's gone up from 485 to 518 to 650 based on the lease and sale. Subject property leases, all the leases in this property are gross. And based on the income and expense mailer, it worked out to $15.17. Page 3 shows the subject property. So based on the wall height, two floors for this building here, 12 feet, because the building height looks like 24 feet. Once again, it's a flex warehouse, not a distribution warehouse, so the requirements are not as high as other industrial properties. Page 4 shows a review of the pictures of where the property is located at. Page 5 shows our cap rate study. Page 6 shows our overall market rents. You can see the sizes variety from as small as 215 square feet to 2,431 square feet, with an average rent that we've used is $6.38. So actually, if you look at the difference here, and you can look at this later, so what happens is between what they're actually receiving and what the net rent that we're using, it's $8.78. And I'll go through their lease information a bit later. We have a potential rent of $48,860, 2.5% for vacancy loss, expenses at 2%, $375 shortfall. We come up with a net operating income of $45,867, using a 6% cap rate because it is a smaller building, so cap rates tend to be lower with smaller buildings. Also built in 1998, so it's a newer building as well. Well, relatively speaking, only 20 years old, but still, it's newish. And we come up with a value of $766,000. So using our model generated rent at 638, here are some comparables on page 7. Once again, the rent locations are at Scurfield, Waverly, Clarence, Troche, and Clarence again, showing a range of rents from $5 to $15.72. Subject properties 12 feet high. The leasable areas range, they're all smaller leasable areas, where the leasable areas are from like 1,000 square feet or so to, I think, 2,350 is the highest one. Rents that we have in question are from, as low as $5, I don't know the details of this lease here, to as high as $15.72. Page 9 shows the location of it, so it's just off Chevrier Boulevard in the southwest quadrant. Page 10 shows pictures of the subject property. As you can see, this is not your typical warehouse. This is actually a nice office space here. I've never been in this building, so I can't comment on this, but if this was an OFS property, looking at the quality of the finish here, it would easily be in the $10 range based on my experience in dealing with office properties. Page 11 shows some pictures. Page 12 shows the bathroom and the hallway space. Page 13. I'll give everybody a chance to go to page 13. And will I just do a calculation here? So on page 13, it just shows what the rents are at $116,246, showing the breakdown of all their expenses and everything like that. And what's interesting here, and let me just double check on this. So our net operating income is $45,867, and what they've reported here is they've reported net operating income of $42,668. I don't know all the details of all the expenses that they used here, but you know, $5,000 is within a tight range. Once again, what I did with the expenses is I went to 116,246 divided by the square footage equals 1516. Page 14 shows showing that all the rents are gross. And let me just go through the rest of the model here. That concludes my formal presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Sitkowski, questions of the assessor?
Mr. Frolick, well, you did say that you hadn't had a chance to quote, drive by at least this building. Do you know the location? It's on Manahan. Do you know the type of street that this is?
Well, it's a feeder street that sort of connects, like looking at the map that was provided to us in the brief. Let me just.
Do you know that it's a cul-de-sac? There's only one entrance to the street. Did you know that?
You know what? I did not know that.
Would that alter your view of value for this property?
No, in some regards, you know, the southwest quadrant's the southwest quadrant. You know, people are in industrial parks, people are going there for a reason. The person who goes into industrial park, they're not making an impulse decision. So in that regards, I don't think the cul-de-sac, it may not, but in the overall big picture of things, I don't think it would impact value.
So are you saying that located on a busy thoroughfare as opposed to a street like this would absolutely have no effect on value?
Looking at the map per se, on page 9, I don't know that, like, I've never been on Manahan, so I don't remember. I know I've been on Chevrier. I was there last month, or this month, maybe last month. Either way, I did not go into the cul-de-sac, but in terms of overall valuation, when we're looking, when we're looking at the sale of the property of $650, we're looking at our value of $766. I think the marketplace is indicating that we're not far off in terms of valuation.
So very limited land to building ratio of under 2 and limited access, in your opinion, really would reflect on or affect the market value?
I don't think land to building ratio is important with this type of property. You have office spaces that are 215 square feet. The overall subject property is 7662. I don't see a lot of trucks driving through here, unloading property here in office spaces.
You haven't been to this property, so
no, but I'm looking at the picture per se. I'm looking at the location. The pictures here show that there's not a lot of warehouse space in here.
Okay, but there's office space and somebody that wanting to visit this building would require parking space. Is that correct?
I think there's sufficient parking for this property.
Now, page 13, so you've indicated, of course, that the NOI that was supplied by the owner was lower than the NOI that the city uses to arrive at value.
That is correct.
in other instances, you've indicated that the NOI is greater than what the city uses. So my question is, how much weight do you put on these documents where you don't actually, where you haven't used the actual NOIs supplied by the owner to come up with your values for the property?
As I stated before, when we look at market valuation, it's a model-based valuation process. Let me finish. So when we look at market valuation, we look at all aspects in their evaluation process. I haven't done this for this evaluation, but sometimes when I look at property values, I'll look at the sales per square foot for the subject property, and then I'll also look at what properties are in the marketplace. So what we're looking at is we're looking at our market rents. So are there market rents that we're presenting here reflective of what's taking place in the marketplace? I've clearly shown a wide variety of rents that are similar to the subject property. I've also looked at, and I'll make this shorter, and we're looking at the quality of the finish here. Standard warehouses are $5, if not higher. We have warehouse spaces that are brand new office spaces that are like $8, $9, you know?
But
And
in
when
this
you're
case,
dealing with economies of scale here, I think our market rents are more than fine. I'm sorry for being long-winded there.
all of these properties, the city uses models, and I'm not sure how you could justify including these documents that are submitted by the owner and trying to suggest that the NOI in some cases, doesn't even resemble the NOI that the city uses, and that there's some sort of relevance there.
So, I'll ask this question when it's my turn to ask questions. Okay, so what was your question, Les? It's just, I think I asked and answered the question that he had asked me before, Mr. Baird. Did I answer that sufficiently? Okay, thank you.
All right, those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Your cap rate chart on page 5 gives a range from 20th to 80th of 6.34 to 7.8. Why would you apply a cap rate of 6% to a 21-year-old building?
Because that's what we have in the marketplace. So for the southwest quadrant, and relatively speaking, because we have industrial warehouse properties that were built in the 1940s and 1950s that are still functional and everything like that. So relatively speaking, and if you look at it, so if you look at our cap rate study on, what page is it again, Brent?
5.
Page 5. So if you look at it on page 5, so what's happening here? Our low range here is 5.5%. So it is a bit older, but it's also very, very small. And so when it's very, very small, you have more buyers that are willing to look at and purchase that property. So cap rates tend to be higher for properties that are a lot more expensive. Not always the case, because when we looked at 1100 Waverly, that had a 5% cap rate, but that was more of a mixed-use property. It was more like a flex warehouse, because they had warehouse space, they had retail space, they had, it was a combination of things. So the 6% cap rate that we use is based on information that we have in the marketplace.
Okay, the pictures, do you know when they were taken?
I do not print.
Because it looks like it's 100% vacant.
Yeah, well, but if you're looking at the income and expense mailer here, and maybe at the time it was vacated, but on the bottom of page 14, it doesn't seem to be vacated at all.
Yeah, I can see that. I was just curious as to when the pictures were taken.
Yeah, I didn't produce the brief.
No further questions.
I thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
No questions, thank you.
I just have one. There's like 7 units in here, and but some of them are pretty small.
Yep.
Like 271 square
Yeah.
feet, and like, but it's really an unfair question because you haven't been to the property. And the other fact is that in the brief that was submitted by your colleague, there were some border revision orders that that are fairly current.
Okay.
And I just want to know, and I looked at, you know, I wonder why they are in there.
I can't answer that question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And I didn't even reference it in my
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
because I'm mindful of time.
Yeah, okay. I thank you. Mr. Sitkowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So first I'd like to refer everybody to page 4 of the submission. Page 4 shows a couple of pictures, and I'd like to everybody to see the top picture. The top picture shows the property, of course, the property with the blue roof there, which is it's the blue roof, and you can see it's the street it's a cul-de-sac, and it has access. The street behind, and then there's a back lane, and then there's some properties, and then the street behind that's Clarence. And the access to these properties is problematic. You'll see just on the opposite side of this cul-de-sac, you'll see a whole bunch of cars parked on this cul-de-sac. And I was there to take pictures as well, and I had difficulty, I shouldn't say I had difficulty, that may be so that word is maybe a bit too extreme, but I had to navigate through all the cars that were parked on that cul-de-sac in the street. Because the property across the cul-de-sac from the subject, it's an auto repair establishment. And so as a result, you can see even through on this picture, you can see that there are many vehicles parked and parked on the cul-de-sac itself. So if you enter, it'd be difficult to go around the cul-de-sac and exit. And so in our opinion, the location here definitely would have a factor on the value of this particular property. Not just the location, but also the land to building ratio, which is under 2, would have an impact. Now, when I'd like now to turn to page 3 of the presentation, and we're using a cap rate of 8%, mainly because of the challenges accessing this property. We're using not only that, but of course the land to building ratio is under 2. So we're based on the 8% cap rate, management or non-recoverable expenses of 5%, and so using the lease rate, there's an incorrection here, 515 for the lease rate, it should be 517. And based on that 517 lease rate, the value is $446,000. So we asked that the board reduce the value of this particular property to that amount. I should also mention that in 2018, there was a board order, and this was by way of a recommendation to reduce the value from $797,000 to $666,000 in 2018. Then if you just, if you just take a look at some of the other pictures on page 5 and 6, you will know that there are cars parked. The picture on page 5, and these are pictures that I've taken as I was there. There are obviously vehicles parked in the back of the building, and that's the back lane that runs along the street. And page 6 shows a picture of some vehicles parked in front of the building. And the next page, page 7, it just shows a picture of how close this particular building is to the adjoining building. Thank you.
Mr. Sitkowski, can you just repeat that number that you finalized there for the value?
Yes, it's $446,000.
446? Okay, thank you. Mr. Frolick, questions?
Just to confirm, How did you come with the $5.15 rent?
Oh, sorry, that was based on the evidence that was presented. So if you take a look at the industrial market and comparables,
Okay.
the average there is 516.5.
Okay. You know what, in fairness, and I apologize to, my colleague did a considerable amount of work. So on warehouse number 1 here, you've stated that the rent is $7.25, is that correct?
That's what the document shows. Yes.
Okay, so I have the mailer here stating that the actual rent was $10. So Kellett copy, so this is 550 Century, Kellett copy, 2,836 square feet. And I don't know if she actually presented. She has the entire rent roll here, but I'm just showing the highlights of what she's presented here of $10, and it's here for your review. Then what she also did here, so she did a considerable amount of work here, so I hate to not validate her hard work and effort. So comparable number,
Sorry, what did you,
so
First one.
the mailer here states that it's a $10 rent. Here, we'll just show the first one here, because we have many examples. So your first comparable number 1 here, at 550 Century, shows $10.
okay, so on page 2, it shows that the average rent is $675.
No, well, it's your comparable here, and so, and that's fine, but I'm just
So,
showing
I
here.
know, but what you're saying is one of the units was a 10.
So you're saying that the rent's $7.25, and based on your analysis and your model, you're justifying a $5.15 rent. And with a range of rents, the range of rents are there, but I'm just saying, to me, that's a 25% discrepancy, which is pretty significant. I have other examples of that as well, but
Excuse me, is that rebuttal evidence?
well, I'm questioning your evidence. So you're stating
But that's
that
rebuttal.
it would be rebuttal because I'm questioning the reliability of the evidence.
So do you have copies of that?
Well, I've provided one copy here right now, I'm making reference to it. I can,
Well, why are you bringing that up? Because, I mean, you know, we're talking about, you know, lease rates of, you know, that the assessor's using of $6.38 and the appellant of $5.17. So how does the $10 come into play?
well, it's about the information that's presented here, right? And so what we're saying is that the rents for the neighborhood that we've shown here seem to be reasonable. And, you know, my colleague did the work, and so I want to make reference to it. Just bear with me for a sec. So, did you do any research into the sale of for $650,000 that took place
No,
in 2000?
no.
And do you know what the assessed value is of the property that was in 2016, 14, and 12?
It's really irrelevant, okay?
Okay,
So,
fair enough. So you have no information with regards to the sale of in terms of the net income or the cap rate they used to justify the sale of $650,000?
Well, that occurred way before the reference here, so.
Well, the point is, that if you look at the sale, it took place 5 years, but your cap rate study that you presented here included cap rates that were even older. Just bear with me here for a second. Cap rate study. I don't know where it is. I'll find it somewhere, but that concludes the questions, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
No, I have no questions.
Mr. Wayford?
I have no questions.
Summary on either party?
Yeah, and this one I think I will. We have a sale of $650,000. Our market evidence shows we're using market rents in the southwest quadrant. I showed the quality of the finish that we're using here. I believe that the market rent of $638 is more than fair, and we're showing gross rents of $15. And for industrial warehouses, our shortfall is $375. So I think we're more than within reason in terms of market valuation for this property. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to 1450.
May I say it?
I'm sorry.
Rick?
Okay.
So, there was a question asked about the value of our our cap rates and the rents. Our cap rates are not that much different from the cap rates that the city of Winnipeg uses. They have a range up to 9.8, and the city indicates that there's 60% of the properties fall within 6.34 and 7.8. We believe that this property is an outlier mainly because of the difficult access to this particular property, because it's located, I mentioned to you where it's located, and we feel that a higher cap rate would be warranted. And we feel that, of course, that based on the rent study that was provided, we feel that a rate of $5.17 would be more appropriate. Now, we're using models just like the city's using models. We're not using specific rents or specific cap rates associated with any particular building. We're using models based on mass appraisal theory. And based on that, we feel that a value of $446,000 would be more appropriate for this particular property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll go on to 1450 Wilson Place. Whenever you're ready, mister.
File number is 193935.
Excuse me, can you, sorry,
No
I'm
problem.
not quite ready
Yeah,
yet.
no problem.
Okay.
Sorry.
Which one, sorry, which one?
Wilson Place,
Wilson, oh.
1450.
Is it 1050? What time?
What's that?
No,
What's that for?
10:39.
Yeah, because at this angle I have trouble seeing it. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to see what time it was. Can I go less?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sorry. So,
Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
I'll try to expedite. I think this is our last one? Or we
No,
got
it's
one more
not.
after that?
No.
Oh, no.
But you're getting
File
close.
Why
file
why don't you
number,
give up on this one?
whatever you wish. But I am on camera, so I gotta be true to the process. Roll number 0307149900, 1450 Wilson Place. We have, for 2020, we have assessed value of $797,000. It's a warehouse that was built in 1988. Zoning's M2. We have a land area of 41,810. We have a land to building ratio of 627, and we have a leasable area of 6,670 square feet. There was property owner has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers. There was a multi-roll sale of this property for $1,225,000. I don't know the details of that. There are no subject leases properties for this property, so I do believe it's owner occupied. Page 3 shows pictures of the subject property. And page 4 shows where the location's at. So, you know, there is a significant land to building ratio. We're not asking for excess land due to the nature of the business, because there's trucks here and whatnot, but you can see there's a significant amount of land here.
Sorry, you say you're not asking for excess land?
We're not asking, I don't believe so, just give me a sec, maybe we are. I apologize. We're not?
No.
Actually, we are,
Oh,
120.
sorry.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
We are, sorry, I didn't realize
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
sorry, Les, you know, I'm looking at this. Okay. So, because, yeah, so it's not, I don't know the details of that, so if you guys ask me any questions about the surplus land, I apologize. Page 5 shows cap rates that we used here. This is what we have here for rent, so storage warehouse property, SWH. Our blended rates are $8.10. We've adjusted the cap rate here to 12.5%, just because there was an increase in vacancy.
You mean vacancy allowance?
Yeah, vacancy allowance of 12.5%. I don't know the details about this, but, you know, obviously it's based on the research done by my colleague. So we have made a concession here, so, for the property valuation of this. Expenses are 2%, shortfall's $375. We have a net operating income of 43,187. Using a 6.4% cap rate because the property is smaller in nature and it is it is relatively newer. So you can see the difference here between this property and last property. Last property, the cap rate was, I think, 6%, and that was built in 1998. This property is built in 1988, so it has a higher cap rate of 6.4%. We asked $122,000 for the additional land value to come up with a value of $797. I just want to reference the mailer here for 1 sec. Gentlemen and ladies. So on page 12 of the brief, and I don't know the details of this property. So what happens here is on page 12, they're reporting a net operating income of $46,171. And our operating income is $43,187. My colleague had mentioned reference to that, so that's why I used it. Page 7. What we're looking at here is we're looking at all the rents that are in the neighborhood, similar to the other ones that we've used in the past. They're all of smaller sizes. Biggest one is 7,000 square feet, which is a newer building on Wilson. But we have addresses on Skirfield, Fennel, Seal, Murray Park Road. Similar to the property sizes, what happens is the subject property has 16 feet, 16 wall height of 16 height. We are 18, 12, 17, 19, so we're within the range here. Most of our properties are close to most of the leases that we're using are close to the effective year built. Our rents show a range here from $5.18 to $10.50. Our oldest building with the oldest rent on the 1575 Seal has the lowest 15 feet ceiling height, but it has $5.19. So older buildings do show older rents. Our average rents that we have here is $627 of the comparables, and that concludes page 7. Land sales comparables. So what we're using here is we have comparables on Seal, Clarence, Waverly, and Waverly. We're showing rents ranging from $5.55 to $20.27. What we're doing here is the lot size.
Sorry, not rents, but sale per square foot.
Sale per square foot, yes, thank you. So what we have here is for the sales price per square foot, there is an issue of economies of scale. So what my colleague had done, the lot size is 41,810 square feet, which is confirmed on the page 1. She used excess land of approximately just under 25%. She uses excess land of 9,238 square feet at $13.20 to come up with $122,000.
That value was also in Mr. Sipkowski, so
Oh,
he's agreeing with you, so
Sorry,
that's
I
okay.
apologize.
No,
As-
that's fine. No.
Yeah, page 10 shows Bill Gerberly, where it's located at. And page 11 shows the property owner has been complying with regards to completing income expense mailers. They're showing a net rent of $45,000. And we are slightly high, and our model slightly higher at 54. But everything balances out. In terms of the net operating income, I'm just wanting to see if I missed any information here. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Sipkowski, questions of the assessor?
So again, you, just the city or the department use model data to arrive at the value.
That's correct.
So then, little if any weight should be placed on the income and expense.
Yeah, asked and answered.
No, because I'm just all wondering why you
we-
keep raising that issue of the NOI that's been
Because we
indicated.
want to be reasonable in our approach to value. And so we're doing different tests. Not looking at your brief here right now, but you're showing a net operating income of $24,000, which is 50% less than what the owner has reported here. So you have your evaluation process and we have ours. And we also have what's been provided by the owner.
Okay, but again, document that you provide here, the owner's document, you're not putting any weight on that, or very little weight on the NOI that's there. So.
As I've asked her before, we look at many factors to come up with market valuation. And this is one aspect as a test that we would use to see that we're being reasonable. Because sometimes there are mailers that are very off base with what we have here. So in those situations, we put little weight on it.
So am I wrong to understand that in some cases, you're saying that we're trying to be reasonable, but in some cases, with respect to some of the properties that we've heard, where is the reason sometimes? Because I mean, what the mailer indicates is so off by the models that you use. And so how can you say you're
that
trying
would
to
be
be reasonable?
negative for you then, because if we were using the actuals, our assessments would be quite higher.
That's not the question. I mean, you've indicated that you use models, and this is not the first time models have been used by the department.
Every property on the 2020 document for income producing properties uses models. Minus hotels, but that's a bit modified.
Now, so I just wanted to clarify, the area, where does it show that the area of excess land is shown? You suggested that it's, there's 90,236 square feet of excess land. Where is that shown on your document?
Well, the point is in the brief that I haven't created. So what we're saying here is that, if we cut this property in 25% quadrants, that there's probably potential for development that could take place where if the company chooses to expand, or that there's potential for development there.
I'm not, questioning the fact that there could be potential for development. I'm just asking you to explain how you arrived at that, of
So,
9,000.
okay, to answer Mr.
Well,
Mayor's
Mr.
question.
Sitkowski, you are in agreement with it, so.
No, I'm not saying I'm in disagreement.
That's what I thought.
I would just like to know how that value was arrived at.
Well, I think Mr. Frolick had mentioned that about 25% is considered excess land,
Yeah.
which comes to like
93
93
square feet, yeah.
square feet.
Yeah.
So you can do the math if you like.
Okay.
So if you agree with it, which looks like you have.
I'm
Okay,
not saying I'm
so-
disputing it.
Okay, so you just wanted to know out of curiosity?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And, so with respect to your, the board of revision orders, the couple that you have here, we're not arguing, we're not making any more comments regarding the non-recoverable expenses. And that,
No,
is that
no.
why that was put in here?
Yeah, she did that for information's sake.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
You're using a vacancy rate of 12.5%.
Yes.
Is that the model-driven rate?
No, definitely not. Model's 2.5. So my colleague must have did an adjustment on it based on the history. But I don't know the details of that, I'm
The
sorry.
mailer shows 0 vacancy owner occupied.
You know what? I did not create the brief,
No,
so
I appreciate
I
that.
cannot answer that question. I know the history of it, and so, like, it shows owner occupied, and so I can't answer that, Fred, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whiteford?
Yeah, I may be confused on this, but page 14,
Yeah.
it shows a rent of $4,500 a month, which by my reckoning times 12 is $54,000. Then we go over to the first line on page 12, and we get $45,000.
Could be
Can you
dyslexic.
explain? Oh, that was actually my first thought.
You know what, I made that on occasion, could be dyslexic, you know what I mean, and so that would actually increase the net operating income. I can't comment on that, maybe looking at the lease, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
That's my only question, thank you.
Thank you. Normally, sometimes they, when there is a sale on the property, but you talked about I guess a portfolio sale?
It's at a multi-role sale, so my
Yeah.
colleague who had done the work,
So, sometimes they send out a questionnaire to the owner.
yeah.
So there was no questionnaire sent out?
Well, yeah, so if you look at page 2, it shows
Yeah.
that there was a sales
Yeah.
mailer sent to us. It said multi-role sale, but I don't know the details
Yeah, sometimes
of
they
it.
they specify what the
What
price
portion's
is.
what portion,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't even know the other property, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
so I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Mr. Sitkowski, your presentation.
Okay. So, the arguments regarding the cap rate, being the same, as in the past, and also I'm just gonna correct the rent, which shows here to be $5.15, we're gonna be going to $5.17, and at $5.17, using the parameters, other parameters that you see on this presentation, the value should be $454,463, or $454,000.
454?
Yes. And so we have, in this case, as you can see, we have no disagreement with respect to the vacancy allowance. We're adding in the 5% non-recoverable expenses, and we're using a capitalization rate of 7.5, mainly because of the age of this particular building. So it's a over 30-year-old building, and we feel that cap rate of 7.5 would be more appropriate for this property so therefore, based on these parameters, we're asking for the board to reduce the value to $454,000. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Frolick,
A lot of questions are redundant, but I do want to ask one question to the applicant. The owner has reported either 45,000 as gross potential rent or 54,000 gross potential rent. A lot of the rents that you've presented here are $5.15 today. Do you do any adjustments for that? And can you explain the difference of why you're using 34,000 for gross potential rent when the owner has offered a value that's significantly higher? So it's a two-part question. Why is there no adjustments to a lot of the rents that are given here today?
Well, I mean, the answer to that, of course, is that we're using models, and just like the department is using models, we're using models as well.
Okay. And even though your model that you presented here today doesn't show any market rents in the southwest quadrant, correct?
Based on the information we got, I mean, it's, yeah.
Well,
And of course, we're not arguing the vacancy allowance, I mean, it is what it is.
No other questions?
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
No questions.
Mr. Whiteford?
No question.
Summation of the party?
No.
Okay. We'll go to number 9, Fennel, and that's the last one, so, Mr. Frolick?
Let me know when you're ready, Les.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I was overzealous last time, so I apologize.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, awesome, thank you. File number 193942, roll number 030715000000, 9 Fennel Street. Assessed value that we have for this property is $894,000. It's north of New Goverley, between Waverly and Covenant Highway. One-story building. Actually, years built are between 1966 and 1988. The effective year built that we have is 1980. M2 manufacturing. Leasable area that we have is 11,836. And we have a land to building ratio of 3.68. Oh, I guess this was the other sale of this property. Sorry, I didn't get that far, so.
That's fine.
Okay.
But like, it's not gonna be separated or anything, so.
No, so yeah.
It could be.
Yeah,
It
but
could be.
I'm just realizing it because
Yeah.
the dates match.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious. Can I check something now?
Well, you can check later.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Property lease in place. So there's a lease in place here at $2.03. Obviously, this is not a market lease that we have, based on the information we've talked about so far today. Here are pictures of the property. Page 3 just shows the general well-being of it. Not too sure what they do here, but page 4 shows that information, shows an overhead shot of it. Page 5 is cap rate, our market valuation that what we have for this property. Storage warehouse, 11,836 square feet. We're using a bottle rent of $5.55. Vacancy at 2.5%, expenses at 2%, having an overall capitalization rate of 6.9%. So looking at this property here, you can see a trend with the last 3 properties that we've dealt with. We've gone from 6% to 6.4 to 6.9% cap rates, and a lot of that's based on the years the property's being built. What we have here is we have a net operating income of $61,657. Come up using a 6.9% cap rate, we come up with $894. Our comparables that we've used, I think they're identical to all the other comparables that I've used earlier today. We're showing they're all in the southwest quadrant. They range in sizes between 1875 to 13,889. Our effective year built that we have for this property is 1980, and we're showing all of our comparables are built within the same period of time. The average that my colleague came up with, which is 555, and here's an overview of all the tenants there. All subject properties in the subject neighborhood, similar rents of 519 to 1107. There is a lease in place, but it's not at market value. My colleague wrote here, Fort Garry Industrial Park, Southwest commanding rents between 1050 and 1357, according to Colliers and whatnot. Page 9 shows where the location's at. Page 10 shows the income expense mailer that they provided us. Bear with me for 1 sec here. And let me see what else we have. That concludes my formal presentation.
I thank you. Mr. Snikowski, questions?
Thank you. So this particular building, I think, is the oldest building of the set of buildings that you were reviewing today. That's the effective age 69, so it's about 50 years old.
Yeah, but the effective age that we have for this property is 1980.
No, it's 1969.
Okay, but on my brief here, it shows 1980.
Well, that's,
So obviously, it's gone through some improvements and adjustments over the years where we've, so if you have a portion of it that's been added on in 1988, and looking at the roof, you know, you can't always tell by the roof. See, but there's different sections of the building here. So if you look at page 4 of my brief, there are different sections, and we're actually showing here on our building here. So the original building was built in 1966, and there was an addition added in 1988. So if you look at the front page here, there's 2 different buildings. So our effective age is 1980, based, I guess, on the work that we've done in the past. So to call it a 1966 building and the oldest building wouldn't be true, because if we're looking at page 4, the roof lines are different, and I don't know the details of that. But, sorry.
Mr. Eric, have you checked actually the data that the city of Winnipeg supplies for this building?
As I've stated clearly before,
Okay,
I
I'll
haven't
present that
had
as
any
my
exposure to
evidence.
this building. I'm basing it on here, but deducting the fact that we have it listed as 2 separate buildings, looking at 2 different roof lines here, I can't comment on what's on our website.
So this building, as we can see by the pictures, if you take a look at pictures on page 3 and page 4, it's used mainly for storage and, I don't know, it's like a bunch of, to me that looks like junk, or I guess for other people it's probably not junk. Much of the property is cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff. Is that correct?
I can't comment on the business practices of what they do there.
And again, the page 10, the income and expense reports, you're not putting any weight on that, is that correct?
Well, because what happens here is we don't have like, using I think if I look on what my colleague had presented here for market rent, so they reported a rent of $2.03. We use $2 rents for shelf space that are unheated.
Okay, so
And
in short,
obviously, this is not a shelf space that's unheated, but I haven't been there, so I can't comment.
so
And I haven't-
sorry. So again, not putting any weight on these things, just like in the past, because these
Well-
NOIs are so different from the NOIs that you use in your presentation.
Yeah, well, the point is when we do our modeling process, you know, we take out outliers. And this is clearly, like even yourself, Les, you haven't presented any market rents of $2. And I gotta see your evaluation here. But even in your evaluation here, you're using $5.15, you're not using actuals of $2. So, yeah, even you have.
Okay. All right, no more questions for me.
Mr. McIntyre,
I have no question.
Mr. Whitford?
And again, you've never been inside this
No,
building?
I have not.
Okay, thank you, no questions.
Mr. Sitkowski, the floor is
Okay,
yours.
I'd like to begin by stating that for 2018, the assessment was reduced from 868,000 to 699,000 by way of a recommendation.
Can you give us those numbers again?
From 868,000 to 699,000.
Thank you.
So, I'd like to, first of all, to turn to page 4 of my presentation. This is a printout directly from the City of Winnipeg website, and you'll note that the overall effective year is 1969. So, this is information that we garnered from the City of Winnipeg site. So the building is about 50 years old, actually. So then I'd like to, again, with respect to page 3, the workup, just like to change the 515 to 517 per square foot, stating the 5% for the non-recoverable expenses. And in this particular instance, because of the age of the building, we're suggesting that a cap rate of 8.5% would be a lot more appropriate. And as a result, with that slight change from 515 to 517, we're asking for a reduction to $638,000.
Sorry, was there a recommendation for $699?
The 699,000, yes.
Supposedly.
Okay, sorry, I just got confused there. So, I'll ask the question later.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, you said supposedly? I mean, that's my evidence.
Okay, no problem.
I thank you. Are you finished, Mr. Sitkowski?
Yeah.
Your last was 638.
638. Yeah, and if you just want to go through the pictures very briefly. And again, these are pictures, most of these pictures that I took, I went to the site to inspect the site. I didn't go inside the building, however. I was just there walking around the exterior of the building. And you'll notice on page 8, I mean, it's pretty, the siding, the cladding, the exterior cladding was pretty dated, pretty worn. There's, page 10 and page 11 shows tires stored on the building, and I don't know, paint cans and and page 12, oh, those are shingles, used shingles there. So this building, or this property is for storage of probably old building materials amongst other items. So, in short, we're asking, based on page 3 of the presentation, we're asking for a reduction to $638,000. Thank you.
I thank you, Mr. Frolick.
Okay, so the value that you're seeking today is $638,000?
Yes, based on the models that we
Okay, and what was the $699? Was $699,000?
that was in 2018.
Oh, that was in 2018?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Or for 2018, I should say.
You know what, why did you use the 8.5% cap rate?
Well, the main reason why we used the 8.5% is because of the age of the building, 50 years old. The use of the property, it's used essentially to store junk. But it's mainly because of the age of the building.
But if a new owner purchased that property, wouldn't the previous owner get rid of all that junk and use it as a warehouse?
Well, I don't know what a new owner would do, whether, well, he would have to upgrade the building, and that would probably, you know, he wanted to use.
But we don't know the condition of the inside the building because you haven't provided any pictures of it, so it could be high quality space, could it not be?
Well, but I'm just, I showed you pictures from the exterior cladding, and the exterior cladding looks like it's been worn. And, I mean, take a look at, you know, again, take a look at page, what was it, page 8. I mean, you'll see that cladding is, quite worn.
Okay. No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
I just have one comment on page 6. This is a Google map aerial taken in 2009. Somebody cleaned it up, and then you were there in October?
I was, yes, I was, what are
According
the
to
dates of the pictures?
the
Yes.
date on your,
Yes.
well, somebody should.
No,
be-
sorry, it wouldn't have been October, it would have, I got them on my phone, I can tell you exactly when I was there.
No, it shows,
But-
your photos are dated on the top.
Oh, then, okay, so then it would have been that, then yes.
Well, somebody sure made a mess of it in a short period of time. It was just a comment. At one point, it
Oh,
was
yeah,
clean.
That's funny.
I see that.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that's interesting, yeah. Oh, but the current conditions, of course, are
Well,
as
are
per
your
the pictures,
pictures,
yes.
That was all.
Okay. Richard, any
No, I'm fine, thank you.
summation, either
I'm
party?
good.
All right? Okay. I think that concludes our hearing, so thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski, for your presentation. And Mr. Frolick, thanks for the substitution.
No problem. Thank you for being kind with the questions and understanding.